The series begins by showcasing a mysterious zombie virus outbreak that spreads mysteriously across the world, causing widespread destruction and leaving only a few survivors. However, the zombie virus only infects adults over the age of 25. This allows teenagers to survive the zombie outbreak, including a high school teenager named Josh Wheeler. At that moment, Josh explains that after the world was destroyed by the zombie virus outbreak, he is free to live anywhere and do anything he wants. However, Josh still has to be careful of the zombies roaming around to avoid being eaten by the hungry zombies. Like typical teenagers, those who survive the zombie outbreak start forming their own groups based on their social circles, where they take over territories like gangsters in a video game. So far, Josh decides to survive alone because he is on a mission to find his girlfriend, Sam Dean, who was separated from him when the zombie virus outbreak first spread throughout the city. Josh searches for his girlfriend by exploring the entire city, hoping she is still alive. One day, Josh sees a woman who looks like Sam hiding from a group of men who are members of a golf club. This leaves Josh no choice but to fight the group to save Sam. At first, the golf club members offer Josh to join them because they are now short on members. Unfortunately, Josh refuses, leading to a fight between him and the golf club members. Despite being outnumbered, Josh manages to defeat them all because he is used to surviving alone. When the woman hiding comes out, she turns out not to be Sam, but a girl named Angelica, a mischievous girl who used to bother him. Josh then plans to leave and abandon Angelica because he is still annoyed with her notorious behavior. However, suddenly, they are confronted by a mysterious man dressed as a samurai. The samurai turns out to be one of Josh's classmates named Wesley Fists, who used to bully Josh and loved swords. At that time, Wesley often brought a katana to school because he was obsessed with the samurai spirit. Although Wesley used to be a troublemaker, he says he no longer wants to do bad things to atone for all his past sins and become a true samurai. Initially, Josh doesn't care about Wesley's words and plans to leave quickly because he is on a mission to find his missing girlfriend. When Wesley learns that Josh is looking for Sam, he says he once got information from a member of another group about Sam now living in a mall. The mall is owned by a man named Baron, rumored to be very cruel because he often kidnaps people to use as food. On the other hand, the golf club members, dissatisfied with their defeat, decide to seek help from Turbo, the leader of a group of athletes who control many territories. Known for their brutality, several other groups decide to ally with Turbo because his group is very strong. When Turbo sees the message from the golf club members, he orders his followers to head to the golf club and help them, just to relieve his boredom. Meanwhile, Josh and the others were seen arrive at his hideout, where they plan to gather some supplies and food for their journey to the mall, which is quite far from their current location. However, Turbo and his group manage to track down Josh. This forces Josh and the others to stay put as Turbo's men surround the entire area. Realizing they can't escape, Josh and the others decide to fight back by throwing balloons filled with blood at Turbo's group. Apparently, the scent of blood attracts zombies, causing chaos everywhere. While Turbo's group deals with the zombies, Josh and the others use the opportunity to escape. Despite this, Turbo doesn't give up easily, as they start searching the entire area to find Josh. When Josh hides in a car, he accidentally encounters Turbo, forcing him to flee in another direction to distract Turbo's group. Meanwhile, Angelica and Wesley head to the mall first to see if Sam is really there. As they try to break into the mall, a zombie starts approaching them. Fortunately, Josh, having escaped Turbo, attacks the zombie, scaring it away. However, zombies are not their only problem, as they now have to face Baron, who controls the entire mall. When Baron removes his helmet, they realize that the person is actually Josh's classmate, Eli, who used to be very naive and often bought fake items, making him a target for bullies. Seeing this, Josh and the others assume that Eli is impersonating Baron to protect himself from other groups. As they argued, the real Baron suddenly appeared behind them, prompting them to quickly enter the mall and lock the door. At that moment, Eli managed to trap Josh and Angelica in another part of the mall, claiming the mall as his own and refusing to share it. But Eli forgot that Wesley was still behind him. Unfortunately, because Wesley wanted to be a true samurai and avoid fighting weaker individuals, he couldn't fight Eli. Instead, Wesley tried to negotiate with Eli, hoping he would hand over the key used to lock Josh and Angelica. While inside the mall, Josh begins to recall memories of his past when he was on a date with Sam at the mall, making a video vlog. However, Things went awry when Wesley's friend, Hoyles, came and started bullying Josh. At the same time, they suddenly hear the sound of a zombie hiding in the mall. Because of this, Josh and Angelica try to capture the female zombie to find out if it is Sam who has been infected by the virus. It turns out the female zombie is not Sam but their teacher, Miss Crumble. Although she has turned into a zombie, Miss Crumble still retains her human consciousness, allowing her to speak and communicate normally. At that moment, Miss Crumble tells them that she can unlock the gate because she has a spare key to the mall. She then opens her mouth wide, searching for the key she accidentally swallowed earlier. Unfortunately, Miss Crumble couldn't find the key herself and asked Josh to retrieve it. Hearing this, Josh panicked, fearing that Miss Crumble, who had turned into a zombie, would bite him. Despite his fear, Josh bravely reached into her mouth and managed to get the key. As they were about to open the gate, a zombie managed to sneak into the mall and attack them. Just as Josh was about to be bitten, Eli and Wesley arrived and helped fight off the zombie. They also warned that there was a more urgent problem than the zombie, as the Baron had successfully navigated all the traps Eli had set around the mall. Baron then enters the mall, forcing Josh and the others to fight the mysterious man. Unexpectedly, Miss Crumble arrives and helps them, scaring Baron away. On the other hand, Turbo and his followers, angry at failing to capture Josh, take out their frustration on the remaining golf club members. Refusing to accept defeat, Turbo calls upon all allied groups to unite and form an even larger, invincible group. After some time, representatives from several groups arrive. The Kardashian group, known for their eccentric fashion, the Cowboy group, who love ranching and riding horses, and the Steampunk group, composed of geniuses who enjoy scientific experiments. Each group offers items as tributes to Turbo's group, but the Steampunk group brings nothing. This angers Turbo's subordinate, Mona Lisa, who feels insulted. Unbeknownst to them, the Steampunk group secretly assembles their weapons and fires at Turbo, believing they, as geniuses, are more fit to lead. Unexpectedly, Turbo anticipated the betrayal and had prepared a replacement from the golf club members. After seizing the Steampunk's weapon, Mona Lisa orders her followers to capture all Steampunk members. That night, Turbo's group and the other groups hold a party to celebrate their union. However, during the event, Turbo remained fixated on his grudge against Josh for having humiliated him. Elsewhere, Josh, despairing over his failure to find Sam, feels lost, unsure where to search next. Reflecting on his past, he remembers how Sam was always by his side, even when he was a nerd bullied by Hoyles and others. While talking to himself, Josh realizes he was accidentally bitten by Miss Crumble during their fight with Baron. Fearing he will turn into a zombie, Josh plans to cut off his hand before the virus spreads to his brain. However, in his panic, he accidentally cuts off his own index finger instead. At the same time, Angelica arrives and tells Josh that young people have immunity to the zombie virus, so those who survive the zombie apocalypse cannot get infected even if they are bitten by zombies. Seeing Josh's poor condition, Angelica and Wesley asked Eli if he had any antibiotics to prevent an infection in Josh's wound. Unfortunately, Eli didn't have any, so they planned to go to the nearest pharmacy. As the wound could be life-threatening if not treated promptly, it was revealed that Angelica was once a genius obsessed with chemicals. However, due to her overprotective family, she had to be homeschooled, which made her frustrated. As a result, she channeled her frustration into becoming mischievous. Additionally, Angelica was very good at lying and often manipulated doctors to get various drugs she wanted. She then combined these chemicals to make edible slime and sold it at Josh's school to make friends and connections. With Angelica's skills, they decide to go to the nearest pharmacy to find some antibiotics. After walking for some time, they find an abandoned pharmacy but don't realize they are being watched. Meanwhile, Turbo, still angry about Josh's actions, tried to calm his rage by looking at all the awards he had won. Apparently, before the zombie outbreak, Turbo was very talented, especially in football. Afterward, Mona Lisa instructed everyone to prepare for a big event and ordered Johnny, the leader of the Steampunk group, to do something special as directed by Turbo. On the other hand, Angelica and Wesley finally found the medications they needed, but they were suddenly surrounded by many zombies waiting for them outside the pharmacy. As they prepare to fight the zombies start falling, indicating someone else is defeating them. Realizing this, Angelica tells Wesley to run as the attackers might be from another group wanting to steal their supplies. Unfortunately, they are too late as a group of beautiful women called the Cheermazons arrives and blocks their way. The leader of the Cheermazons, Demi, once beaten badly by Angelica because Demi mocked her when Angelica just wanted to be friends. Apparently, Demi also holds a grudge against Wesley for previously being part of Turbo's group and plans to finish him off. However, Angelica explains that they are in a hurry because they need to save Josh, who is in critical condition. After hearing Angelica's explanation, Demi agrees to let them take the medicines to Josh, but under one condition: that Angelica must join the Cheermazons. Feeling happy that she is finally needed and invited to join a group, Angelica recalls her dream of forming her own group and doing things they all enjoy together. On the other hand, Miss Crumble, feeling suddenly hungry, starts thinking about eating Josh, especially since he is currently very weak and unable to defend himself. However, Miss Crumble seems to have another plan instead of eating Josh. She then collects a lot of worms from the trash and puts Josh's finger into a bowl of worms, causing him to faint from fear. In short, when the event organized by Turbo begins, Mona Lisa tells Johnny to meet Turbo directly. At that moment, Johnny is instructed to pretend to be Turbo's father and deliver some motivational words prepared by his men. Initially, Johnny is confused but does as instructed, encouraging Turbo with wise words. Unfortunately, Turbo becomes angry because Johnny doesn't resemble his father, but when Johnny starts encouraging Turbo with his own words, it makes him emotional, and he hugs Johnny as if he were his father. After this, Turbo unexpectedly orders his men to throw Johnny off the platform, resulting in Johnny's death. Meanwhile, as Wesley heads back to the mall, Angelica decides not to join the Cheermazon group and chooses to go with Josh. This makes Wesley curious why Angelica would give up her dream just to accompany Josh. It turns out Angelica once had feelings for Josh because he once said something that made her very happy. However, Angelica couldn't express her feelings at the time because Josh already had a girlfriend. Although Angelica wants to form her own group with Josh and Wesley, they are unsure if Josh will leave them because he is on a mission to find his girlfriend. Not wanting to lose Josh, Angelica plans to do something to ensure he doesn't leave her. Not long after, Josh finally wakes up and he finds a bowl of antibiotic slime made by Angelica. He then eats the slime while talking to Miss Crumble, who is sitting nearby. It turns out Miss Crumble never intended to harm Josh, as she wanted to help him because the worms eat dead tissue, preventing infection in Josh's injured finger. Miss Crumble then tells Josh to thank Angelica and Wesley because they went out to find the antibiotics. When Josh met them, Angelica looked very sad. It turned out that Angelica and Wesley showed Josh that they had found Sam's body. This made Josh feel very desperate because he had just lost the girlfriend he loved so much. He never imagined having a girlfriend as beautiful and kind-hearted as Sam. Meanwhile, Baron, who previously fled after seeing Miss Crumble, is furious because he had never run away before. Because of that, he plans to launch a counterattack. After losing his girlfriend, Josh decides to become a samurai like Wesley, hoping it will calm his troubled heart. However, Josh is not yet fit to fight with a sword, especially with only 4 fingers left on one hand. At the same time, Josh realizes that Sam might have been attacked by Baron, as he is a psychopath who often attacks other teenagers and uses them as food. Therefore, Josh decides to fight Baron to avenge his girlfriend's death. Moreover, Josh realizes that the person behind Baron's mask seems to be the same person who used to bully him in school, Hoyles, because he once brought a motorcycle to school that looks very similar to the one Baron rides now. Josh then prepares all the weapons he needs. He even replaces his finger with a mannequin finger so he can better handle his sword. Wesley, not wanting to let Josh go alone, decides to accompany him to help defeat Baron. However, without their knowledge, Turbo's men are watching them, tracking their movements. Once Turbo learns of Josh's location, he orders all his men to get ready to destroy him. In short, after a long journey, they finally find Baron's trail. But before continuing, Wesley warns Josh to be careful, as his intense anger could make him lose focus and be easily defeated. Not wanting to lose Josh, Wesley tries to trick him into running in a different direction. Eventually, they are chased by zombies and encounter golf club members trying to block their way. Turbo's group, having discovered Josh's whereabouts, arrives, forcing Wesley and Josh to fight them all. Before the battle begins, a mysterious doll appears. Apparently, it's a trap set by Baron to eliminate everyone. The explosion causes Turbo's men to flee, while Josh, Turbo, and Wesley are knocked unconscious due to their proximity to the blast. The scene then showing before the zombie virus outbreak. At that moment, the principal, Mr. Paul, was seen called in Hoyle's parents because of his poor grades and frequent rule-breaking. Hoyle's wealthy parents, who own a cereal factory, tried to bribe Mr. Paul with advanced educational equipment. Unable to refuse, Mr. Paul accepted the gifts, but this only made Hoyle's more rebellious, believing money could buy anything he wanted. After waking up, Josh finds himself, Wesley, and Turbo in Hoyle's parents' cereal factory. Several other teenagers are working there with collars around their necks to prevent escape. Seeing this, Josh attempts to escape using lockpicks hidden in his mannequin finger. He then waits until Baron leaves on his motorcycle before making his move. After ensuring the coast is clear, Josh tries to unlock the padlock. However, his clumsiness causes him to drop the lockpicks, which are found by one of the workers. The female worker then approaches Josh and helps him escape, even showing him the way out. Unfortunately, Josh can't understand what she says because she always speaks in sign language. As Josh enters Baron's room to find the other cage keys, he unexpectedly encounters Hoyles tied up in a humiliating position, revealing that Hoyles is not the person behind Baron's mask. At the same time, Baron returns to his headquarters. When Baron removes all his gear, Josh is shocked to discover that the person behind the mask is Mr. Paul, the school principal. At that time, Mr. Paul had accepted bribes from Hoyle's parents, not without reason, but to trap Hoyles into breaking rules and gathering evidence against him for criminal activities, which Mr. Paul then reported to the police. Despite becoming a zombie, Mr. Paul, a genius, still retained his consciousness and control. He also vented his frustration on the mischievous children by capturing and turning them into food. At that moment, he planned to cook Hoyles, who had treated him poorly. Josh couldn't let this happen and fought Mr. Paul by freeing Hoyles from his bindings. An enraged Mr. Paul tried to attack Josh, but Josh fought back and escaped. While Mr. Paul searched for Josh, knowing he was still in the factory, Josh managed to trap him in a room. As Josh prepared to finish him off, none of his attacks landed. It turned out that Josh missed on purpose to take the key that Mr. Paul had. After that, Josh used the key to free everyone, including the workers, while Mr. Paul was trapped inside the cereal making machine, unable to escape. After rescuing many people, Josh takes them to the mall to form a stronger group. Unbeknownst to them, Wesley secretly frees Turbo because they used to be best friends. Inside the mall, everyone starts transforming it into their new base, making it comfortable to live in. At the same time, Josh and Wesley also help people set up their belongings. Not only that, but Josh also becomes close to a Chinese woman named Jean as they often go out together. Josh even tries to learn Chinese so he can communicate with Jean, who doesn't speak English. Meanwhile, Wesley secretly meets with Turbo at Hoyle's cereal factory. Turbo, still holding a grudge against Josh, asks Wesley to help him eliminate Josh, which makes Wesley increasingly conflicted as this situation mirrors his past school days. Back then, during a football match, Wesley was asked by his cousin to lose the game because his cousin desperately needed the win. On the other hand, Turbo demanded Wesley win the game as he hated losing. Unbeknownst to him, Eli had been spying on Wesley using a remote-controlled car with a camera. Because of this, Wesley confronts Eli and throws him out of the mall, intending for the zombies to get him. However, going against his samurai principles, Wesley changes his mind and lets Eli back into the mall. Wesley also realizes that he must choose between helping Turbo or Josh. At the same time, Eli, aware of Turbo's request, tries to persuade Wesley to side with Turbo because Eli is also upset with Josh for bringing others into the mall. After much contemplation, Wesley decides to choose Turbo because of their long-standing friendship, whereas Josh means nothing to him. To celebrate their victory over Baron, the group plans a big party. They even prepare a crown for Josh as a token of appreciation for saving them. However, Wesley secretly poisons the crown, intending to kill Josh when he wears it. Additionally, Wesley invites Turbo to the party to show off his triumph over Josh. At the same time, Mona Lisa, learning about the invitation, tries to persuade Turbo to eradicate everyone in Josh's group to eliminate any opposition to their power. As the party begins, Wesley suddenly feels very scared. After talking to himself, he realizes that what he is doing is wrong. If he doesn't stop it, all his efforts to atone for his past sins will be in vain. Meanwhile, in Turbo's headquarters, Turbo and his men plan to destroy everyone in the mall. Without delay, they head to the mall, breaking through all the zombies around it. At the same time, Wesley tries to stop the party and warn everyone that Turbo and his men are coming to destroy the mall. Unfortunately, they are too late because Turbo has already entered the mall and turned off the lights. Without hesitation, Turbo and his men begin attacking anyone they encounter in the mall. However, when they turn the lights back on, they realize they have only attacked mannequins, which Josh and the others had set up to deceive Turbo just before he entered the mall. Josh and the others then surround Turbo's group, leading to a battle between the two groups. The battle is so intense that the scene isn't shown in the film. Instead, it is depicted by Turbo using his toys. In the epic battle, Josh's group manages to drive Turbo away, injuring him with an arrow in his back. However, Turbo captures several members of Josh's group as prisoners. After the attack, Josh is forced to imprison Wesley and Eli for their heinous actions. Despite this, Josh cannot bring himself to punish them harshly. For now, he will only imprison them. Additionally, Josh realizes that Turbo won't stop here, meaning they can't just stay idle. It seems the best time to launch a counterattack is now, knowing that he is injured. They then divide tasks, where Angelica and Miss Crumble plan to go to the cereal factory to check if Mr. Paul is still there, while Josh and Jean plan to infiltrate Turbo's territory. With Jin's stealing skills, they can easily get food from vending machines. They then use the food to bribe Turbo's men so they can enter his territory undetected. After a long journey, they arrive at a place where a mysterious group is hiding in containers. At that moment, they meet a group of gamers led by Arya Killigan. With the strategic intelligence of these pro players, Jean hopes Arya can help them plan a covert attack on Turbo. Unfortunately, Arya refuses, deeming the mission too risky. However, Jean reminds Arya of a debt, as Jean once saved her from a zombie attack. To repay this debt, Arya agrees to help Jean with the mission against Turbo. Given the strength of Turbo's group, Arya first contacts one of Turbo's men who is also a gamer to get help infiltrating Turbo's headquarters. Once their plan is complete, Arya and her friends will launch a nighttime attack like assassins. Meanwhile, Turbo suspects there is an imposter in their group and gathers all his men in the field. Mona Lisa then instructs them to report any suspicious activity within the headquarters. If they cannot find the imposter, everyone will be punished until the imposter is caught. After that, Turbo and Mona Lisa begin interrogating their followers one by one. But finding the imposter among them proves difficult because the imposter could lie and frame others. On the other hand, Angelica and Miss Crumble arrive at the cereal factory, where they find Mr. Paul trapped in a cage. However, upon seeing him, Miss Crumble starts acting very strangely and urges Angelica to leave immediately. Soon after, Miss Crumble suddenly transforms into a zombie and tries to eat Angelica. Because of this, Angelica has no choice but to run from Miss Crumble, ending up trapped in a toilet. While in the toilet, Angelica realizes she is on her period, explaining why Miss Crumble is so eager to eat her. As someone infected by the zombie virus, Miss Crumble must lose consciousness when she smells blood. At the same time, Mr. Paul, knowing that Angelica is trapped in the toilet, tries to persuade her by promising to help her escape if she frees him from his cage. However, Angelica, being smarter than most kids, realizes Mr. Paul is trying to manipulate her and refuses his request. As Angelica attempts to leave, she notices Miss Crumble in immense pain, with something on her back indicating that the zombie is slowly evolving into something more terrifying. Meanwhile, Turbo and Mona Lisa, unable to find the imposter among their group, become overwhelmed. People then began accusing each other, but in the midst of the commotion, a kind-hearted man named Owen finally confessed to being the imposter. Despite this, Mona Lisa and the other Turbo's followers didn't immediately believe Owen because they knew he was a good person who handled their equipment and didn't participate in the mall attack. This causes further chaos as everyone protests against punishing Owen without clear evidence. Turbo realizes he does not want to harm his followers, as he only wants to be a father figure to his friends who lost their families to the zombie virus outbreak. Before the zombie virus outbreak, Turbo's father was a kind-hearted man who often gave him gifts whenever he came home. Unfortunately, Turbo's father was a super busy businessman who was rarely home, often traveling out of town for weeks or months at a time. In the present, as Turbo and the others were trying to resolve their issues, the power suddenly went out. Inside a container, Josh and Jean are watching a recording showing Arya and her team infiltrating Turbo's headquarters. Initially, they manage to enter undetected, but one by one, Turbo's men start capturing them until only Arya remains, attempting to reach the room where Turbo is. When Arya enters the room, Turbo is already waiting for her and captures her. Turbo then speaks in front of the camera, telling Josh that he is lost. After that, Arya and the other gamers are interrogated by Mona Lisa, who tries to find out who helped them get in, as it would be impossible to enter Turbo's heavily guarded headquarters without inside help. Reluctantly, Arya reveals she had assistance from another player. The description given by Arya points to Gary, a member of the golf club. Because of this, Turbo punishes Gary to show the others that betrayal is not tolerated. Unbeknownst to them, Turbo had planned everything. His injury, letting the gamers into his headquarters, and framing Gary as a scapegoat, all to defeat Josh. On the other hand, Josh felt lost because he didn't know what to do next. After losing his girlfriend, being betrayed by his allies, and failing to defeat Turbo, he was now in a state of despair. Hearing this, Jean tries to encourage Josh, seeing him as a hero who saved her from Baron. It appears that Jean has feelings for Josh, and they decide to start a relationship. Before returning, Josh watches Arya's recording, made just before her capture by Turbo. Unexpectedly, the recording shows that Sam is still alive and is now with Turbo's group. Realizing Sam is still alive, Josh confronts Wesley and Angelica for faking her death. Feeling betrayed, Josh expels Wesley, Angelica, and Eli from the mall for their deception and previous schemes against him. The incident made Angelica angry, so she decided to leave and join the Chirmazan group, while Wesley planned to wander alone to atone for his past mistakes. Eli, having no place in the mall, tried to sneak back in whenever Josh wasn't looking. However, Josh always noticed Eli and frequently kicked him out. Since learning that Sam was still alive, Josh constantly planned to rescue her, making Jean jealous and upset, realizing she was just a distraction for Josh during his loneliness. Realizing he no longer had any allies to help him, Josh decided to rescue Sam alone. He even named his sword Sam's Rescue Sword. As Josh was about to leave, the mall's alarm suddenly went off. Thinking it was Eli's doing again, Josh checked from the top of the mall and discovered that it wasn't Eli who set off the alarm but a beautiful girl named Mavis, Eli's mysterious girlfriend mentioned earlier. Mavis, an artist, told Josh that all the survivors of the virus outbreak resemble a tree drawing she made. Although each person has their own group with specific goals, they all share the same basic aim, which to survive in a world overrun by zombies. After hearing Mavis's words, Josh finally admitted that before the virus outbreak and the city's destruction, he and Sam had already broken up, meaning they were no longer dating. Meanwhile, in Turbo's group, Mona Lisa, who had been very loyal to Turbo from the start, began to lose trust in him because he was willing to sacrifice one of his followers just to defeat Josh. Apparently, Turbo had secretly carried out this plan without telling anyone, including Mona Lisa, his right-hand person. Because of this, they feared that Turbo's current behavior would lead their group to ruin, as Turbo would do anything to defeat Josh. They needed to address this issue quickly, and Mona Lisa entrusted it to Sam, who was once the smartest student in school. On the other hand, while Miss Crumble was looking for Angelica, Josh informed her that she had joined the Chirmazan group, making Miss Crumble sad because Angelica had always been kind to her. Reluctantly, Miss Crumble decided to leave the mall and search for Angelica. After a long journey, Miss Crumble realized that the Chirmazan group's poster contained a riddle leading to their headquarters. Miss Crumble then followed the clues and finally found the Chirmazan headquarters. At the Chirmazan headquarters, Miss Crumble is stopped by several members who ask her to show her identity. When Miss Crumble produces a diamond necklace, the Chirmazans welcome her into their headquarters. The leader of the Chirmazans welcomes everyone who has arrived. However, to join the Chirmazan group, they must pass 3 tests first. For the first test, Demi explains that women must control their appetite to maintain an ideal weight. She then prepares a variety of delicious foods and drinks, some of which are poisoned. At that moment, the participants must identify the safe items that can be consumed. Because of this, some people choose what they believe are nutritious or healthy foods, but they end up picking the poison ones and get stomach aches. At the same time, Angelica realizes that Miss Crumble is also taking the test. After examining the food, Miss Crumble advises Angelica to drink only water, believing it to be the only unpoisoned option. Fortunately, Their choice proves correct, and they advance to the next test. Additionally, Demi acknowledges that water is the most crucial resource, especially during the zombie virus outbreak, as humans can survive more than 2 weeks without food but only 3 days without water. In the second test, participants must survive an attack by Santa Claus zombies. As soon as the test begins, they start fighting the zombies. However, Miss Crumble opens her mouth wide, revealing that she is an adult infected by the zombie virus. Seeing this, Demi then calls for a vote on whether Miss Crumble should live or not. When it's Angelica's turn to vote, she chooses to defy Demi and leave, not wanting to lose Miss Crumble. Unbeknownst to her, this response makes her pass the third, secret test. Apparently, Demi was looking for someone capable of thinking outside the box, as Angelica did before. Ultimately, Angelica becomes an official member of the Cheermazons. Despite this, she cannot leave Miss Crumble behind. Therefore, Angelica decides to stay with Miss Crumble, as they have been through the zombie outbreak together for a long time. On the other hand, Sam, Mona Lisa, and a golf club member named Barry try to persuade Mr. Paul to replace Turbo as the leader. But first, Mr. Paul must promise not to eat people anymore. Mr. Paul then agrees to their request, as he also wishes to create a normal environment like they had in school. Shortly after, at the school, when Turbo hears Mr. Paul's voice, he immediately heads to the principal's office. However, unbeknownst to him, Mr. Paul, dressed as Baron, engages in a duel with Turbo and ultimately defeats him. From that point on, Mr. Paul takes over Turbo's group and declares that anyone breaking school rules will suffer the same fate as Turbo that expelled from the group and the school. Mr. Paul then attempts to restore the school to its pre-zombie virus outbreak state. He then seeks assistance from Sam and the others, as he doesn't know how they managed to survive in the ruined world. Unbeknownst to them, Wesley has been observing the school from a distance. Seeing Turbo expelled, Wesley tries to rescue him, not wanting to lose his friend despite their previous disagreements. Meanwhile, as Josh plans to rescue Sam, he recalls the past when he had just broken up with her. Because of this, he feels guilty for having said very harsh things to Sam back then, even though she didn't know anything. Apparently, the day before the zombie virus outbreak, Josh and Sam decided to skip school and spend the day together having fun. When they got to Josh's house, he found a message from his mother, who was out of town, asking him to call his father. At the same time, his mother also called and sent messages urging him to contact his father. However, Josh was too preoccupied with his girlfriend and ignored all his mother's messages. When Josh accidentally answered his phone, he was shocked to learn that his father had died that day. Josh felt deep regret for ignoring his mother's messages and choosing to have fun with his girlfriend instead. If he had listened to his mother, he could have seen his father, who was in critical condition. In his emotional state, Josh blamed Sam and insulted her with harsh words, which hurt her deeply. After their breakup, Sam decided to become the school queen, just as Josh had once suggested. While sitting alone in a room, Josh reminisces about his childhood when he used to go hunting with his father in the forest. He feels happy remembering how his father taught him survival skills in the wilderness. It seems that the experience of hunting with his father helped Josh survive in the midst of the destruction caused by the zombie virus outbreak. While Josh is sitting there, Eli suddenly arrives, revealing that the place is his hiding spot since he was kicked out of the mall by Josh. If Josh leaves the mall, Eli will likely take it over again and hurt Jean and the other teenagers. Therefore, Josh must find another way to persuade Eli not to cause trouble. Josh then offers to bring him Yu-Gi-Oh cards from school, which interests Eli because he has loved collecting these cards since childhood, even though his mother often scolded him, forcing him to keep them in his school locker. Additionally, Josh asks for a costume similar to Baron's so he can use it to infiltrate the school. Since Eli doesn't want Josh to know where his locker key is, he decides to go with him. At that moment, Eli plans to disguise himself as Baron and pretend to capture Josh to hand him over to Turbo. With Eli's involvement, Josh no longer worries about Jean and the others, so he agrees to the plan. Before leaving, Jean encourages Josh, knowing he isn't truly a bad person. Without delay, Josh and Eli head to the school on Eli's motorcycle, discussing Yu-Gi-Oh cards along the way since Josh also used to collect them. Because of this, Eli starts to trust Josh and considers him a childhood friend. However, when they are about to carry out their mission, Hoyle suddenly attacks Eli, mistaking him for Baron, and seriously injures him. Despite Eli's odd and annoying behavior, Josh can't leave him behind because he knows Eli isn't a bad person. Eli once saved Josh from a zombie attack when they were assaulted by Baron in the mall. Unfortunately, Eli cannot survive his injuries and, after saying his goodbyes, he dies, leaving Josh deeply saddened as if he has lost a close friend. Meanwhile, when Wesley sees that Turbo is severely injured, he calls for help. Angelica and several Cheermazon members, including Miss Crumble, who is skilled at treating wounds, arrive. At that moment, Wesley also remarks how strange it is to see their group together again. However, Angelica cannot stay long because she is now part of the Cheermazon group. Inside the school, Mr. Paul tells Sam that after investigating how some people survived the zombie outbreak, he discovered that the reason they survived was due to an immunization he had organized for all the students at his school before the outbreak spread. It seems that the immunization and vaccination were only effective for teenagers, as their bodies adapt more easily. This prompted Mr. Paul to plan on creating another vaccine to fully combat the zombie virus. Initially, Sam did not suspect anything and even helped distribute slime laced with the vaccine to the other students. However, people who consumed the slime started collapsing one by one. Sam then confronted Mr. Paul to find out what he was really doing. Upon entering his room, Sam discovered Mr. Paul eating some of Barry's organs. Additionally, Mr. Paul had also gathered a loyal following and seemed to have plans that conflicted with Turbo's previous goals. Meanwhile, after Eli died, Josh took his Baron costume and headed to the school, determined not to let Eli's efforts go to waste. Upon arriving at the school, Josh found it deserted. He then searched from room to room until he found Sam trying to escape. Just as he approached her, the school suddenly exploded. 36 minutes before the explosion, Mr. Paul had convinced his followers by promising to take them to a better place than the current city. To achieve this, he needed the help of Angelica, a genius. He then ordered one of his followers to detonate a missile near the Cheermazon headquarters. After several attempts, Mr. Paul's followers succeeded. They then took the unconscious Angelica to the cereal factory, which Mr. Paul had made his new headquarters after blowing up the school. Mr. Paul then instructed Angelica to detonate a nuclear bomb that had failed to explode and was lodged in front of the cereal factory. If Angelica refused, Mr. Paul threatened to harm Miss Crumble. Reluctantly, Angelica complied with Mr. Paul's demands, although she didn't understand his true intentions. It seemed Mr. Paul planned to annihilate all the remaining teenagers in the city, as he was fed up with their reckless behavior. At the same time, Mr. Paul then confessed to Miss Crumble that he had liked her since their time at the school. After exacting his revenge on the teenagers, Mr. Paul intended to take Miss Crumble somewhere to start a new life together as half-human, half-zombie beings. Meanwhile, after Mr. Paul detonated the missile near the school, Josh and Sam survived the explosion. Unfortunately, their hearing was slightly impaired due to the loud blast. Josh then takes Sam back to the mall, where he informs everyone that Mr. Paul plans to destroy the entire city. Hearing this, Jean suggests that they all leave immediately, but Sam refuses, arguing that they must stop Mr. Paul. Surprisingly, everyone agrees with Jean, including Josh, which angers Sam because she realizes that Josh now has a new girlfriend after their breakup. After hearing Sam's words, Josh realizes that his main goal for surviving in the zombie-infested world was to find Sam. Now that he has found her, he can't abandon her. So, Josh decides to go back to Sam. Initially, Sam is upset because Josh broke up with her without explaining that his father had just died. Josh then apologizes to Sam, expressing regret for his actions and acknowledges that he has fought hard to find her. Sam finally accepts Josh's apology, and together they start planning how to defeat Mr. Paul. Finally, they soon realize that they can't fight Mr. Paul and his followers alone. Josh and Sam decide to seek Angelica's help. Unfortunately, Mr. Paul has already kidnapped Angelica, so Josh and Sam turn to the Cheermazons for help. Hearing this, the Cheermazons immediately agree to assist them in defeating Mr. Paul. On the other hand, as Turbo recovers from his injuries, he challenges Wesley to a duel to resolve their previous issues. At that moment, Turbo chooses to use weapons he had prepared in advance. In short, after setting the time, they prepare to shoot at each other to determine who is faster. However, when the time is up, Turbo lets Wesley win the duel. Unbeknownst to them, the weapons are not real. Shortly after that, Josh and Sam found them. At that moment, Josh forgave Wesley, and Josh even made peace with Turbo, showing that Turbo and Wesley would help Josh fight Mr. Paul. While discussing who should lead the group, Jean and the others return to the mall. announcing that they will help Josh defeat Mr. Paul. Ultimately, they choose Josh as their leader because he has proven to be the most suitable for the role. Josh then comes up with an idea and instructs everyone to get on top of a vehicle and play music as loudly as possible. This confuses Sam because they are preparing for a battle against Mr. Paul's group, not a drum band performance. Meanwhile, as Mr. Paul gathers his followers, they suddenly hear loud music coming from Josh's car. Seeing this, Mr. Paul orders his followers to attack the car. Unbeknownst to them, Josh had intentionally created noise to attract all the zombies in the city. Josh planned to use the zombies to fight Mr. Paul's followers, leading to a fierce battle. While Mr. Paul's followers are busy fighting hundreds of zombies, Josh and the others rush to save Angelica. Unfortunately, Angelica can't leave immediately because she needs to disable the nuclear system first. While Angelica works on stopping the nuclear threat, Josh and Sam try to rescue Miss Crumble, who is trapped in the factory. Suddenly, they are attacked by Mr. Paul. Therefore, Sam tells Josh to go find Miss Crumble while she holds off Mr. Paul. Using makeshift weapons, Sam fights Mr. Paul with all her strength. However, Mr. Paul, now half zombie, is much stronger than a regular human. Eventually, he corners Sam and is about to finish her off. Just in time, Josh arrived and attacked Mr. Paul from behind. The attack didn't have much effect since Mr. Paul was half zombie. Unexpectedly, Josh's attack was unusual because he had coated his sword with peanut butter, knowing that Mr. Paul had a peanut allergy. The allergic reaction is much worse because Mr. Paul is half zombie, making his condition critical. After a prolonged struggle, Mr. Paul finally dies. Outside, Mr. Paul's followers defeat the zombies brought by Josh. But with their leader gone, Sam proposes a truce. If they don't disable the nuclear system, everyone will die in the explosion. With Miss Crumble's help, Angelica successfully redirects the rocket to space. However, someone needs to press the launch button, and Miss Crumble volunteered, wanting to act as an adult protecting her students. After saying goodbye, Miss Crumble presses the launch button, sending the rocket into space, where it explodes. Initially, Angelica is very sad because she sees Miss Crumble as a parental figure. Miraculously, Miss Crumble survives the rocket fire, and everyone rejoices, including Josh and Sam. After the situation calmed down, Josh invited Sam to stay with him in the mall. However, the destruction caused by the zombie virus outbreak had changed Sam. Since breaking up with Josh, she planned to become a true queen. Now, Sam invited anyone who wanted to join her in building her own kingdom. And so, the series ends. Moral lesson from the story, remember, even if your principal turns into a zombie, don't trust him with your lunch money. And if you ever need to save the world, always carry some peanut butter just in case.